topic, which is the role of independent system operator. Okay, so in this one, I'll be giving you an insight into the role of ISO and electricity markets, which we have already done, and I'll be repeating the same. And at the same time, we will clearly define what are the differences between pool markets and open access markets. In the last class also, I have clearly stated bilateral contracts model is often called as open access markets. Okay, so the contents, I'll be starting with the responsibilities of ISO, just a quick review of what we have done in the first unit, and the types of market structures. We have also completed this one also in the first unit. Clearly, we will be defining the differences between the two market structures, and finally, we will move on to discussion, a small discussion, open discussion on the role of ISO in role of ISO in pool and also open access models. And coming to the first one, responsibilities of ISO. As you know that, as already we have been discussing, that independent system operator is the heart of the electricity markets, and he doesn't own the transmission services. He manages the transmission services. He offers indiscriminatory access without any discrimination to all the participants on a very fair basis. So that's why we always consider that he is the central entity in all the deregulated markets, and he has clearly few responsibilities that we will discuss now. What are the responsibilities of him? We have listed out 6 to 7 responsibilities in our first unit, but we will confine to only to the primary responsibilities. The first one is he is the heart, he is the key point to ensure system security and reliability. This words I am telling is, if anything goes wrong in the power system, ISO must take responsibility in handling the stability of the system, security of the system, and also reliability of the system. He ensures that all the buyers who are entitled to receive the power will be receiving or not. ఎవడైతే ఎలక్ట్రిసిటీ పవర్ కొనుక్కున్నాడో వాడికి ఎట్టి పరిస్థితుల్లో ఆ పవర్ వచ్చే పూచి ఐసో వాడి రెస్పాన్సిబిలిటీ. సో దట్స్ వై ఐఎమ్ ఎన్షూరింగ్ system security and reliability is the prime responsibility of the ISO. Apart from that, the second responsibility for him is he ensures that there is a fair and equitable transmission tariffs. This is the most important thing which I would like to mention for you. He ensures fair transmission tariffs and also equitable transmission tariffs. I am not saying equal, but equitable transmission tariffs. Maybe if somebody takes a bulk of transmission lines, he will be getting a concession, but most of the times they will be provided on an equitable basis. Non-profitable organization laga anko mari profit lekunda kadarana, at least minimum expenses toti the transmission services will be offered to all the participants in a fair manner. Okay, and next is the third and the final responsibility which we will be concentrating as providing ancillary services, other system services and ancillary services. As I told you, voltage management, voltage regulation, reactive power management, reserve capacity, all these you might have studied in your PS1, PS2, PSOC. All these services which are all required for maintaining stability of the system will be offered by ISO. So let's have a quick look. The first one, ensuring system stability and reliability, providing non-discriminatory access to all the people, and offering fair prices and equitable prices, and finally offering them ancillary services for those who need them. Okay, these are the responsibilities of ISO. Okay, now moving ahead, we have discussed this one also in our last units. How many types of market structures are there? There are 2 types of market structures, isn't it? One is pool-co model, the other one is bilateral contracts model, and a combination of these two is called as hybrid model. So even though I mentioned them as 3, my concentration will be only on the 2 models. One is pool-co model, where there is a market where everybody comes and sells the power at a common place. The second one is bilateral contracts model, where the deals are made between bilateral parties. Okay, this bilateral model is called as open access model, where everybody is free to buy the power or sell the power to their own people who are interested. Okay, so that's fine. See what I have mentioned. Based upon the responsibilities assigned to the participants and their functional differences, ISOs could be placed in two categories. What are the two primary categories? One is pool markets, the other one is open access markets. Open access markets itself is called as bilateral contracts model. Okay, bilateral contracts model. Now, first of all, we will start with the pool model. You know, pool model we have been discussing so far. What will be there in a pool model? In a pool model, basically they will be, yeah. In a pool model, what they will be? They will be, yeah. They will be buyers. Sorry, they will be sellers and they will be buyers, isn't it? And they will be a pool. What we call it as a market, right? So everybody places their bid here, the bids of how much they can generate and how much price they are expecting and when they can generate. All these bids they will be placed in the pool, and these people also they will place their bids here, how much they want, when do they want, at what price they can buy. So once these bids are received, the person in the pool operator, basically he finalizes all the bids and finalizes the schedules. Most of the times I told you, ISO itself will monitor the pool. In most of the cases, 99.99% of the cases, ISO will handle the pool. Apart from this, ISO will handle the transmission services also, isn't it? ISO will also handle the transmission services. So, in a pool model, he not only handles the pool, he takes up the bids, he finalizes the bids, he finalizes the scheduling. Apart from that, he offers transmission services also. So the role of ISO is very crucial in a pool market. He has a huge responsibility. See, this guy is just limited to, the seller is limited to only placing a bid. The buyer is limited to only placing a bid. నాకు ఇంత కావాలి, ఈ రేట్ కావాలి, ఈ టైంలో కావాలి, అంతే. జస్ట్ బిడ్స్ ప్లేస్ అని చేసేసాం, అండ్ హీఈస్ రెడీ విత్ ద అమౌంట్ విచ్ హీఈస్ రెడీ టు పే. సో ద రెస్ట్ ఆఫ్ ద జాబ్స్, whether he will be getting the power, whether how much he will be getting the power, all these calculations will be done in the pool, and that responsibility will be taken up by the ISO most of the times. So that's why in a pool market, the ISO has a very huge responsibility. So that's what I have mentioned here. See, the first and the more common one is a pool structure in which ISO is responsible for. See the responsibilities of ISO in a pool model. Now the first one, what he does market settlements, including scheduling and dispatch. This is the first thing. And next thing is he manages the transmission system. So whatever the services he is offering in the transmission system, because ISO itself will be monitoring the transmission services also, isn't it? So transmission system management. And next is security of the system. This we have already discussed. So these three things. The first one I have mentioned, the pool operation. The second thing, the transmission services. And the third thing is all these three. This it will be done by the ISO operator. Okay. And see where it is existing. See, in UK, I already told you about UK. There are so many markets. UK is not a single market. So UK is a single market. I'm saying in US, there are so many markets in US. So few of the markets they operate with pool model. UK is mostly pool model. Australia is also a pool model where everybody buys and sells a power. There is a power exchange there. So everybody buys and sells power there itself. And Latin American countries also, they follow this pool model. So if you can see UK, Australian and Latin American, we will take the example of UK. And we will do it in the next class. Okay. So UK markets are best examples of pool model. Now, moving ahead, open access markets. In open access markets, predominantly, as I already said, it is predominantly bilateral contracts will be there. And it is most commonly found in Nordic countries. You know the Nordic countries, right? So in all of these Nordic countries, you will be experiencing this bilateral contracts model, where the buyers and sellers, they are free to make negotiable contracts. They do make contracts on their own. So if this is the case, if everybody is doing their own contracts, then in that case, as already I said, so let us suppose if there is a buyer and there is a seller, and there is an agreement between these two guys, and there is an agreement between these two guys. Okay, this much amount of power will be provided and this is the cost. If let us suppose they are making their own individual arrangements, then the transmission services only will be offered by ISO. So what ISO will do? ISO will not involve in these bilateral contracts. He will himself will be limited to only transmission services. He offers only transmission services and ancillary services. So TS and AS, transmission and ancillary services. He won't involve in the pricing. He won't involving in the quantity, how much to be developed, how much is to be bought. He won't involve in all those things. He will just involve in the transmission services. So that's why the role of ISO is very limited in case of an open access market. In a pool market, he has a very huge responsibility. So I have already mentioned here, carefully see. In this system, bulk of the energy transactions are directly organized by between the generator and the consumer. They are making their own arrangements. How much is the cost of electricity? How much I will produce? How much you will take? All these deals, they are being done between these two guys only. ISO has no role in generation scheduling or dispatch. So how much he is generating, how much he is providing to this guy, nothing, no bothering of ISO. He is only responsible for system operation. What system operation? Transmission system operation. Okay. Now, the role of ISO is very minimal and is limited to maintenance of system security and reliability functions. He won't involve in the pricing. He won't involve in the scheduling. He won't involve in the settlement also. He takes money for transmission services only. Okay. In Nordic markets, 85% of the things are basically done with the bilateral contracts only. So that's why this is the best example of an open access markets that we will discuss in the next class. And let's have a quick look with this pool structure and open access structure, particularly with the concept of ISO keeping in our minds. Okay. Now see here. See the differences. I have listed out 5 differences and I'll be asking you for an essay question. Compare the 2 different market structures and which one is suitable for a particular application. I'll be asking you as an analysis question. So based upon the application, you should analyze the 2 market structures and you should say me which one is suitable for the given application. You are final year engineers, right? You must be capable of analyzing the things. Not just giving the material and going through it and directly copying it. Analysis is required. నేను ఇప్పుడు ఓపెన్ యాక్సెస్ మార్కెట్, పూల్ మార్కెట్ గురించి చెప్పానంటే ఇవి చదివి ఎందుకు ఉపయోగపడతాయో మీరు ఆలోచించి ఒక అప్లికేషన్ ఇస్తే దానికి ఎట్లా అది పనికొస్తుందనేది మీరు రాయాలి. పిహెచ్డి మొత్తం కూడా నేను అట్లాగే ఇద్దాం అనుకుంటున్నా. యువర్ ఆల్ ఇన్ టు ద ఫైనల్ ఇయర్. ఐ వాంట్ యూ టు బి అట్ అనాలిసిస్ లెవెల్, ట్రూ ఇంజనీర్. ఓకే, సో దట్స్ వై నేను ఇంతగా స్ట్రెస్ చేస్తున్నా ప్రతిదీ. Try to concentrate in the classes. Okay, so getting back. Now see here. In open access markets, see, bulk of the energy transactions are carried out as bilateral trades. Okay, whereas all energy transactions are carried out through the pool. See the difference here. ఇక్కడ అన్ని బల్క్ అన్ని bilateral trades. ఇక్కడ అన్ని కూడా through pool జరుగుతాయి. And mostly markets also. ఇక్కడ కూడా డే హెడ్ స్పాట్ మార్కెట్ ఉంటుందిరా. డే హెడ్ ఉంటుంది, స్పాట్ మార్కెట్ రెండు ఉంటాయి బేసికల్గా. ఇక్కడ కూడా డే హెడ్, పూల్ మార్కెట్ అంటేనే బేసికల్గా డే హెడ్ మార్కెట్స్. అవునా, ముందు రోజు బిట్స్ అన్ని చేయాలి, దాన్ని బట్టి షెడ్యూలింగ్ చేస్తాం. సో పూల్ మార్కెట్లో డిఫాల్ట్గా డే హెడ్ మార్కెట్ ఉంటుంది. బట్ ఓపెన్ యాక్సెస్లో కూడా డే హెడ్ మార్కెట్ ఉంటుంది. ఎందుకంటే బయలాటరల్ ట్రేడ్స్ అనేవి జరుగుతాయిరా. ఇప్పుడు లెట్ సపోజ్ నేను నీతో టైఅప్ అయ్యాను బేసికల్గా సమ్ 100 మెగావాట్స్కి ఒక 1 year వరకు కావాలి at 5 rupees of cost. I have made a bilateral contract. బట్ రేపు నాకు ఎక్సిజెన్సీ వస్తే లెట్ us సపోజ్ ఇంటికి చుట్టాలు వచ్చారు 20 మెగావాట్స్ ఎక్కువ కావాలన్నట్టు ఉంటుంది చూసారా. సో ఎక్సిజెన్సీ కేసు వచ్చినప్పుడు ఏం చేయాలి? ఐ నీడ్ పవర్, రైట్? సో bilateral contract will not work at that time most of the times. So for that exigency purposes there must be a minimum spot markets. So that's why I am stating here there exists a day ahead spot market also in case of exigency services, whereas in pool market it exists defaultly. Okay, and next is, see the second point here. ISO is not responsible for market administration, generation scheduling or dispatch functions. As already I told you, all this job will be taken care by bilateral bodies itself, the parties who are involved. But see here, ISO is responsible for market settlements, unit commitment, pricing of the electricity. All this will be taken care by the ISO. Whereas here, ISO will not do anything. Now, moving ahead, see the other differences now. See, market administration, only transmission market administration is carried out by separate entity, and in the markets, as already I told you, I told you that I told you that there will be a day ahead spot market also here. Okay, and it is not mandatory to enter the day ahead spot market. You can, if you don't want market, you can, if you are happy with the bilateral contract, you can go with this one as long as you don't have any exigency. Sometimes even exigencies are also traded bilaterally. సో నేను షాపుకి పోయినప్పుడు నేను మాట్లాడుకుంటాను, రోజుకి 10 కేజీలు కావాలి, ఒక్కోసారి ఎమర్జెన్సీ అయితే కానీ 1 కేజీ కావాలి, టక్కన ఫోన్ చేస్తాను, టక్కన తెచ్చేయాలి. ఇట్ ఈస్ ఆల్సో ఏ పార్ట్ ఆఫ్ bilateral contracts, isn't it? So it is not mandatory to enter into, see, it is not mandatory to enter into the market participation. But whereas market administration is carried out by ISO and participation of Gencos is mandatory, all the Gencos are supposed to participate in the pool market only. Okay, and see, ISO is only responsible for system security and control and procuring necessary ancillary services. Here also the same. Okay, I think something is missing here. Okay, I will update it in your PPT. Okay, he is also responsible for system security, and apart from this pool administration, he is responsible for all of these things. Here he is only responsible for these things. Okay, and open access model, best example Nordic markets, whereas in pool model the example is UK markets. Okay, now, moving ahead. Now, last time we have discussed that there are 11 principles of ISO which are laid down by FERC, Federal Electricity Regulatory Commission of New York, and those are the guidelines which every country is still following regarding the ISO. ISO independent system operator అనేవాడు ఇట్లాగే ఉండాలని rules. And responsibilities of ISO, we have seen it in the first line. Now we will have a quick look at the functions of ISO. See, just a quick review. The responsibilities or functions or whatever you feel it, these are the same. In any market structure, if you can carefully see, whether it is a pool market or a bilateral contracts, ISO has 3 basic functions laid out for it. What are the 3 functions you can see? One is maintenance of system security and reliability, which we have already mentioned. The next one is service quality assurance, which is nothing but reliability of the markets, and promotion of economic efficiency and equity, right? These 3 which we have discussed. Apart from that, in pool market, what he does? In pool market, he will manage the market also. Isn't it? Scheduling, settlements, etc. All these things, it will be done exclusively in pool market. In either of these markets, ISO job will be this one. Okay. Then example aduguta. What are the functions of ISO in a pool market? And what are the functions of bilateral contracts in an open access market? మీరు క్లియర్గా క్వశ్చన్ చదివి రాయాలి. ఇప్పుడు నేను ఇవి రాసినవన్నీ విచ్ ఆర్ అప్లికబుల్ టు బోత్ ద మార్కెట్స్. పూల్ మార్కెట్లో అడిషనల్గా ఉంది, సో మీరు జాగ్రత్తగా క్వశ్చన్ చదివి రాయాలి. ఓకే, and to achieve these objects, the ISO may be authorized to set the rules for transactions between suppliers and the consumers, scheduling and dispatch of the generators, loads and transfers. See, for all of these things, ISO will set the rules. Monetary transactions or energy transactions or the scheduling and dispatch of net generators, loads, networks, all is to be handled, isn't it? So ISO will place the rules for all of these things. Okay. So yeah. Then finally, we are coming to an end. See, there is not much difference between the two models, since both the market structures recognize the need of an ISO. రెండిట్లో ISO కావాలి. ఏంటంటే ఓపెన్ యాక్సెస్ మోడల్లో ISO role will be very limited, whereas in case of a pool model, ISO has a very large role to play. But literally speaking, common thing is ISO acts as a regulator for system reliability and operations, transmission operations, isn't it? And if you carefully see, in open access model, enough flexibility for the participants for commercial transactions. Whereas in a pool model, the participants, particularly the buyers and the sellers, they will be adhering to careful coordination by the ISO. So ISO will be acting as a leader of the group for all the buyers and also the sellers. And in deregulated power systems, guys, there is a distinct difference between operator activities in the control loop of an independent profit-seeking Genco in relation to those in the control room of independent operating authority. Both are different. But ISO is different. Independent system operator, independent system transmission operator also they can call it. At the same time, Gencos most of the times they will be profit seeking, even though they are independent in nature. Their major motto to enter the market is nothing but they are supposed to sell their electricity. They are here to make profits, isn't it? They are players in the market. What they want to sell their electricity and they want to make some profits. Basic common idea of a Genco. So that's why the mindset of the people of a Genco and an ISO both are different. Genco is there to make profits. They will not ensure any reliability, they will not ensure any security, etc. What they want is they want to sell the electricity and make profits. On the other hand, independent system operator, they are not working for profits. Their job is to ensure system stability, reliability, isn't it? So the operations of both Genco and ISO are completely different in a competitive environment, even though these two are the key players. Without Genco, there is no question of electricity market. Without ISO also, there is no question of any reliable markets. So that's why both players are important and both players have separate jobs in case of pool markets and also open access markets. So this unit, part 1 of second unit, will be focusing on operations of Genco and ISO separately in a pool markets and an open access market. This is just an introduction of an ISO. The ISO functions I have mentioned here, isn't it? But on a timeline, రేపు మార్కెట్ ఉంది. ఓకే, రేపు మార్కెట్ ఉంది. సో రేపు మార్నింగ్ నుంచి ఈవినింగ్ వరకు ఎవరెవరికి పవర్ కావాలనేది బిట్స్ ఈరోజే సబ్మిట్ చేస్తాం. సో ఈరోజు సబ్మిట్ చేసినప్పుడు నెక్స్ట్ ఏం చేయాలి, ఆ తర్వాత ఏం చేయాలి, రేపు ఏం చేయాలి, ఎల్లుండి ఏం చేయాలి. సో ఈ ప్రొసీజర్ మొత్తం కూడా that we will be concentrating in this unit. Timeline, duties of a ISO and Genco on a timeline in both pool market and open access markets. That is the part 1 of unit number 2. Okay, so now I hope now you are able to describe the role of ISO in both pool markets and open access markets, and I hope you are now able to differentiate between pool markets and pool markets and open access markets based upon the functions of ISO. And see, there are 2 questions for you. One is list the responsibilities of ISO. In examination, I will be asking you list the responsibilities of ISO in pool and open access markets, or what are the common responsibilities in both the markets. So I'll be asking in a different fashion in the examination. And see, this is an analysis question. My analysis question will be like this. Compare the open access and pool market structures based upon the role of ISO in each of the markets. Comparison I do already have given you. Which one is suitable to Indian markets? Justify your reasons. But once again, I am giving you. How many of you are listening the class? Just raise your hands once. For those who are actually listening the classes. 197, good. 106, 68, 63, 81. పిల్లలు మళ్ళీ చెప్తున్నాను, ఇఫ్ దిస్ క్వశ్చన్ ఈజ్ అనాలిసిస్ క్వశ్చన్, నేను 3 మార్క్స్ ఇచ్చాను అంటే చాలామందికి సార్ ఇదే కదా సార్ క్వశ్చన్, కంపేర్ ద ఓపెన్ యాక్సెస్ పూల్ బేస్డ్ ఆన్ ద రోల్ ఆఫ్ ఐసో ఇన్ ఈచ్ ఆఫ్ ద మార్క్స్. టేబుల్ వేసి 5 పాయింట్లు రాశారు, అవునా? మీరు టేబుల్ రాస్తే దీనికి వచ్చే మార్క్స్ 0.5 మార్క్సే. నేను మార్క్స్ ఎక్కడ ఇస్తానంటే దీనికి ఇస్తాను. విచ్ వన్ ఈజ్ సూటబుల్ టు ఇండియన్ మార్కెట్స్, వై ఇట్ ఈస్ సూటబుల్ టు ఇండియన్ మార్కెట్స్. అనాలిసిస్ చేసిన వాటికి మిగిలిన 2.5 మార్కులు వస్తాయి. వన్స్ అగైన్ ఐఎమ్ రిమైండింగ్ యూ గైస్, నేను అనాలిసిస్ లెవెల్ క్వశ్చన్ ఇచ్చాను అంటే మీరు అనాలిసిస్ చేసి ఆ సూటబిలిటీ రాస్తేనే నేను మార్కులు ఇస్తాను. స్టైల్గా కింద ఒక లైన్ రాస్తానంటే దిస్ ఇస్ పూల్ యాక్సెస్ మోడల్ ఈజ్ సూటబుల్ ఫర్ ఇండియన్ మార్కెట్స్ అను, ఓపెన్ యాక్సెస్ మోడల్ ఈజ్ సూటబుల్ ఫర్ ఇండియన్ మార్కెట్స్ అంటూ మాత్రం మార్కులేదు. జస్టిఫికేషన్ ఉండాలి, మినిమం పారా 2 పారాలు ఉండాలి. ఇండియన్ మార్కెట్స్లో ఉండే ప్రాబ్లం ఏంటి, ఎందుకు ఇదే సూట్ అవుతుంది, మీరు చదివి నెట్లో ఎత్తికి రాయాలి. ఐ వాంట్ యూ టు బీ ఏ ట్రూ ఇంజనీర్. టైం లేదనే మాట అసలే రావద్దు. ఇంట్లో కూర్చొని ఏం చేస్తలేరు ఎవరు, సో కూర్చొని చదవాలి. అర్థమైంది? నేను ఎట్లాంటి క్వశ్చన్లు ఇస్తానని కూడా నేను ఇక్కడ రాస్తున్నాను. దీనికి సొల్యూషన్స్లో నేను అనాలిసిస్ లెవెల్ ఇవ్వట్లేదు, నేను ఓన్లీ ఇంతవరకే రాస్తాను. దీనికి సొల్యూషన్స్ ఇస్తా అని చెప్పినా కదా, నేను ఇంతవరకే రాస్తాను. దీని సొల్యూషన్ నేను ఇవ్వను మీకు, సొల్యూషన్ మీరే కష్టపడి రాయాలి. దాని సొల్యూషన్స్ అప్లోడ్ చేసేటప్పుడు కూడా దాని సొల్యూషన్స్ ఇవ్వను బట్టి మీరే రాయాలి. అండ్ వన్ థింగ్ విచ్ ఐ వాంట్ టు రిమైండ్ యూ అగైన్ అండ్ అగైన్, లాస్ట్ టైం మార్క్స్ అందరికీ తగ్గాయి. ఎందుకు అంటే అందరి పేపర్లు ఒకేలాగా ఉన్నాయి. ఈసారి కూడా మళ్ళీ చెప్తున్నాను, అందరి పేపర్లు ఒకేలాగా ఉన్నాయంటే లాస్ట్ టైం 40% మార్క్సే తీసేసిన, ఈసారి 60% మార్క్స్ తీసేస్తాను. నేను లాస్ట్ టైం పిఎస్ఓసి ఎగ్జామ్ ముందర చెప్పాను, ఇప్పుడు కోర్సు స్టార్టింగ్ అప్పుడే చెప్తున్నాను, మళ్ళీ చెప్తాను. నేను మార్కులు తీయడానికి ఏం వెనుకాడు. మేధావులారా, పీపీటీలో చూసి రాసినా మార్కులు తీసేస్తాను, ముందే చెప్తున్నాను. ఉన్నట్టు దుంచినా కూడా ఈసారి 0 పెట్టడం ఖాయం. ఓకే, and we hope at least this time will be an offline examination where we will be evaluating you perfectly. మీరు కొంచెం రాసిన ఓన్ వర్డ్స్లో నేను ఫుల్ మార్క్స్ వేస్తాను. లాస్ట్ టైం సుష్మిత వీళ్ళు రాశారు, ఓన్గా రాశారు. విశాల్ గారు ఉన్నాడు, సుష్మిత ఉన్నది, ఓన్గా రాయండి. మార్కులు మీరు కొంచెం రాసినా నాకు అది హ్యాపీగా అనిపిస్తుంది, నేను మార్కులు వేసేస్తాను. ఇట్స్ అ ఛాన్స్ ఫర్ మీ టు ఎవాల్యుయేట్. బట్ గైస్, ట్రై టు రైట్ ఆన్ యువర్ ఓన్. ఓకే, so that's it here, lecture 1. I wanted to introduce you to ISO. Role of ISO is different in pool and bilateral contracts model. And in the next class, we will be discussing about